Sounds good.
Three, two, one. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of BC Strategies and the smartest people in the room right now. Well, we're the only people in the room, but I'd say we're still the pretty much the smartest ones too. So we are going to talk today on BC Strategies, our kind of collective take on the recent NICE Analyst Summit, which was held in the glamorous central location of Vienna, which is stands on its own for sure. It's a fantastic place to go, but also a shorter and easier commute than we've had in previous nice events, and I think everybody is happy about that one. But we're back in our little spaces here, and then of course on to the next one. It's a busy time for industry events, so we're all traveling all over the place. So glad we could get this little recap done today while it's still fresh in everybody's mind. So I'm John Arnold, and joining me today is Tom Brannan and Nicholas Dekuchowski, better known as NK3, which I think is a great moniker. But we're going to just each talk a bit about what our kind of key takeaways were from the event. And also, I just should mention that in absentia is Blair Pleasant, another BC Strategies expert who was at the event and very active. She has her own kind of lengthy takeaway post coming on BC strategies along with her usual collection of video interviews that she did with various execs during the event. So definitely watch out for that. But now you're going to hear from us. So we'll get things started off with Tom, and I should just preface that you did a really nice, as you always do. You see how I work nice into that?
Yep. Yep.
Video, I guess, I don't know whatever you want to call it, travelogue, montage, but you really captured, I think, the spirit of what we were seeing and doing there, both at the event itself and around the city of Vienna. So, Tom, over to you, and Nicholas will follow up, and I'll add some thoughts after that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John, and great to be with you guys today for sure. It was a stellar event. I mean, NICE does always does a first class A+ job, and this event was no exception. And in fact, they kind of outdid themselves yet again. I don't know how they keep doing that, but as it pertains to the content of the event, I mean, I think it was a different one. It was new leadership. We had three major new leaders in the room with a new CEO, a new CMO, and a new president for CX1. So I know it's we've gotten to see Scott before, but this was the first time we got to spend some kind of meaningful time with him, and he did such a great job, I think, with the kind of setting the stage, and he followed a little bit of Barack's kind of playbook for that in a good way, like because that's the way it should be done, of laying out not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it, providing the context, the macro trends that are driving it. So I thought, he really did a great job of setting the table. And we got to meet Jeff, which was great. He's pretty new, so couldn't share a whole lot since he's only been there a couple of weeks, but super smart guy, and look for big things out of him. And then Michelle Cooper, the CMO, we got to spend time with her as well. So that was really kind of unique. And I think there's a couple takeaways that I had from the event. The one of the big ones was Cognigy. I'm going to save that for Nicholas because I know he wants to dive into that. But the Cognigy guys were there, and very, very impressive group. You can see why they've been so successful, and you can see why NICE really wanted to acquire them. You can also see why they wanted to be acquired by NICE too. It really is a good fit, and I'll let Nicholas provide some more color on that in just a minute. One of the things that I really liked, Brett Foreman talked about the question they get, is where do we start with AI? These companies, they get their directives. The board says, we got to have an AI plan, and they're like, okay, where do we start? That's kind of difficult for some organizations to know. They can do some trials and some POCs, but when it comes to like, what are we really going to do? What are we going to put into production? Sometimes I get stuck there. And so NICE is building some tools to help address that. So that was good to see that you can take some of your data and have them analyze it and come back with some quick and easy, wins to help prioritize where some good places to start. So they had this AI topics where you could kind of sort your all of your interactions by topics, and then kind of come up with some recommendations for some automations and some agents and that kind of thing, and then taking that thread all the way to the end where it could actually help you deploy, agents with Cognigy. So that was a great story to hear. I really love that story because that's such a pain point in the industry, of where do we start. So it's just good to see them really addressing that. They also talked a lot about the mid and back office, and I thought that was kind of interesting. There's always been that kind of desire to do that, but now there seems to be more of a focus on it. And one of the interesting things they said was just how hard it is to actually do that. It's not like you just say, "Oh, well, we're going to start working in the mid and back office," and then do it. Like it's a very complicated place, and I think it's one of those that there's two reasons you would do that. One is just to expand your business, and maybe that's what companies would have thought of in the past. When I think when we get into this agentic world, when you are the front end, of the customer interactions, and you want to automate tasks, and you want to have agents actually do things that a human would do, those often involve the mid and back office. So you kind of have to play in that space. Otherwise, your agents are only going to be able to do so much. And at some point, you're just going to be handing these things off, and handing them off to other agents, which, will happen some of the time. But you've really got to be in that space for your agentic capabilities to really be successful. So it's not so much that they just want to do this or want to expand their business. I think they realize they have to. And I'll just put one final point on that. There was a lot of talk about the mid and back office companies, the CRM vendors, the ServiceNows of the world that are obviously pushing into the CX space. And at the very end, I'm sure y'all remember Scott Russell in his concluding comments kind of gave a passionate, um, a little wrap up of the event, and he was really, really wanting to hammer home this idea that the mid and back office folks, are very good at what they do, but they will struggle to really win in the CX space because that's not where their focus is. And he has some very, he said he had 15 years of experience, obviously, in that world, and understands that world very well. So it's not just him kind of saying these things. I mean, he did it and he seemed very sincere that that NICE really does have an advantage, in that front because that is their focus. That's the only thing that they care about. So I thought that was really one of the high points for me was right there at the very end. Of just hearing him kind of wrap this event up and share kind of his kind of personal journey, with at SAP, and then now, I guess 10 months on the job at NICE. So yeah, I've got more, but I want to save some time here for you guys. So Nicholas.
Hey, thanks, Tom. I'm going to try to build on what you said. So, first, we had the entire new nice team, and that it was a way to really look at what's different with the new nice. And there's really three themes. Number one, I think they have a new wedge into the market. They are much more putting the platform versus in the past, it was an all-in-one, fully featured solution. So they have much more of a platform go to market. Number two, you touch on it. They want to expand beyond CCaaS. And let's face it, all the contact center vendors have adopted the CX moniker, sorry, but it remains in many cases words. And they were very articulate in terms of explaining how they want to expand from the front office, the point of interaction with the customer, into mid and back office function to ensure the complete resolution of customer service interactions. And eventually, they came to me as much more partner friendly, attached to the previous all-in-one positioning. They were trying mostly to sell everything they could, and they could so much. What we've seen is a company that both from a partner standpoint and from a go-to-market, a product partner standpoint, sorry, and from the go-to-market is putting partner at the center of its go-to-market. So that was one. Two, like you, I was very impressed by Cognigy. Cognigy is known as is ranked very high in several rankings. What impresses me is the speed at which Cognigy, which is now a semi-old company in the space, has been able to adapt to all the technology changes. So they were one of the first to incorporate Gen AI into the platform, and the speed at which they incorporated agentic AI in the platform is very impressive. And when you look at it, they're not a big player, and they were very centered in Europe. I always felt they didn't have their fair share of the North American market, and the power of the platform and the go-to-market presence and muscle of NICE should correct that very quickly. And the third topic I want to discuss is this demo that we had, because it's so inspiring about the combination of NICE and Cognigy, and also it kind of teases where the market is going. So it started with the NICE data platform, and already it's a lot for me because 1 year ago, NICE would mention that they have a lot of recordings and conversation, but they were not really marketing a data platform. And what they can do with this platform is that they can lay over AI to augment the conversation on structured data with some metadata. Then they can apply AI to uncover without you having to provide hints or suggest what you want to find out. The AI will find a different type of workflows, the job to be done, and the expected outcomes. And from that, they can identify improvements, whether these are automation improvements, enablement improvements for the human resources, or knowledge improvements. And they present in a structured dashboard for you to select. And the integration you alluded to is where you can take the data set corresponding to, for example, an automation improvement, and use it to simply prompt an agent to be created in the Cognigy platform. So I think the demo really help us visualize the next frontier, what's coming up with agentic CX. So that was, I think, pretty fascinating. Over to you, John.
Great. Okay. Yeah, we could go on a lot of tangents here. There's just so much. And I think that's probably one of the takeaways about this, that this is just how, um, there's a reason why NICE is, shows up as the market leader in so many ways. And they're just doing so many things right. And I'll just add a couple of things on this. So one is, yes, the Cognigy acquisition to me is a way of, you know, product wise of doubling down on agentic for starters. So it was a very clear message throughout, I think, the sessions that agentic AI is really what's driving the innovation now. And customers had better get used to it, that we have this kind of new capability that is delivering results. So it would be one thing if they were talking about this as, the future is coming, but no, they, especially with Cognigy, they've been able to demonstrate real outcomes and impacts. And I think the secret weapon for Cognigy, aside from the fact that I think Cognigy overall stole the show, it was, I think, for their CEO, Phil Heltewig, his first exposure to many of the analysts there. I think Dave Michaels and I are the only analysts who have been to both of Cognigy's customer events in Germany. So we've seen this story a few times already. But to have Benno Schindler up there from Allianz with the big pretzel, everybody remembers that. That's the
Mm-hmm.
visual, right? But I think he really emphasizes why these companies are successful. They're like the perfect customer for Cognigy and ultimately for NICE because they embrace AI and especially voice. I mean, Benno started off talking about voice AI is where so many of the conversations are happening. So you have to be really on that train. If you're just thinking about data and text and chats, you're going to be missing where most of the good stuff is. So they've really got that in spades. And he says they've got, I think, over 90 bots. So they're going all in with this stuff and they're getting the results. That's what's interesting. but it's also the thinking behind it because he talks about using these tools, conversational AI. Basically, what he said was to serve customers up on a silver platter for the human agents. And I think that's a good way of visualizing what we're trying to do with AI here, right? Is just do all the grunt work and all the drudgery and the automated routine things. Let AI do all of that and bring the agent into the customer at the time when they can do the most good for the customer because all the little stuff's already been handled. And I think that to me is like the roadmap that every customer uh, environment needs to be on, whether it's in the contact center or marketing or sales. This is not just a contact center story. And that brings me to this other idea that we heard a lot of messaging around being a CX AI company, right? And we know it's about CX, and they're not saying CCAS so much, but the danger with putting your name and your brand on the term of AI itself, to me, is a little risky because it's making it sound like there's going to be no room for human agents down the road. So I know they're struggling with some of the branding around this. We get it as analysts, but how the market reacts, that's a little bit different. But I think they do have some marketing issues to work through, especially with where Cognigy fits into the portfolio and the branding that's going to go on around that. But I think, we saw kind of the best and the brightest there from both Scott and Jeff Comstock, and yes, Phil from Cognigy. That we may be the smartest guys in this room, but those were the smartest guys in that room. And I think we all came away saying, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. And when Scott started off, Scott Russell, the CEO, right away saying, I'm not going to do an Aussie accent. I think we're past that now, but saying speed is a choice. And I think that's a good way of throwing down the gauntlet because not only are they the market leader, but it's like in Talladega Nights, Tom. I like to go fast. I like to go
Yeah.
fast, right? That's what they're doing here, right? They're putting the pedal to the metal and they're saying we are choosing to go fast and not only set the bar high, but move faster and separate ourselves from the competition. And the way they're embedding themselves into that enterprise software world where Jeff Comstock is very comfortable, they know it's, as you say, beyond CCAS. This has got to be organization wide, and that's where they're aiming. And I think they have all the pieces in place to do it. And one more thing I'll just say, guys, is what we saw, but also what was missing. Yes, we've moved on from Barack, but also Inat, and of course Barry Cooper. There's a culture shift here that we've seen as what's driven their success, and I'm pretty optimistic that the team they have in place will keep them on that path. I don't see them taking steps backwards from anything other than what you pointed out, Nicholas. This is the last thing I'll say is about being channel friendly, right? Being partner friendly. We know they're partner friendly with the Snowflakes, right, and ServiceNows of the world, but we didn't hear much about how they're going to go to market with channel partners, who are the ones who have to really drive a lot of this business. So whether that was by intent or not, that's something I came away wondering a bit about. Where is that part of the story?
One thing you said about speed, it's been something they've been dealing with now for a long time. And one of the things is when you're selling a whole suite and you're selling CCaaS is kind of the base for your, AI and for all this advanced functionality, it just slows down the process. It slows down implementations. Most importantly, it slows down time to value for customers. And so it's something they've been kind of struggling with, and some of their competitors have done a good job saying, we can meet you where you are. We can get to time to value faster because we don't necessarily require you to do a forklift of all of your, of all your applications. Keeping nice Cognigy as a standalone allows them to go after those customers that previously have been like, you know what, we're not interested in the suite, we don't have time for the suite, or we don't want the suite, whatever the case is. They have a product that they can go, well, that's fine. You don't ever have to buy the nice suite. You can just buy nice Cognigy, and get to that time to value, whether you're on another cloud platform or premise or wherever whatever you got. They can go after those customers and they can go after them very aggressively. So I really think this was a missing part to NICE. And you can just see why this acquisition makes so much sense because now that's on the table. And then eventually, if those customers want to put in CCAS or want to move to the NICE platform or their WEM or whatever it is they want to do, of course they'll be there to sell it. But it's a great way for them to go after a part of the market that pretty much wasn't interested in NICE. So I think that's another huge takeaway.
Right. All right, we are coming up on time, guys. So Nicholas, I'm gonna ask you for a final takeaway, and then I think we'll have to wrap up.
Well, I think the takeaway is speed is becoming the currency in the AI world. And, our friends from NICE are pretty deliberate about that in the way they play it. So very impressed by both the team and the event, and I'm sure we'll see more in the coming month.
Yeah, and I'll just to close, just a big set of kudos to the whole AR team. You know, Chris Irwin Dudek, and of course Siobhan and
Yeah.
Bernard and CMO with Michelle, and everything that went in behind that, Michelle Carlson, all the events people, Wendy, who put on just as always an incredible event and very creative. We're not even going to talk today about the stuff, the fun stuff that we did, which was a whole other conversation, and it was
Mhm.
fantastic. So end to end, this is how you do analyst events, folks, and I expect nothing less from them for next year too. So okay, so with that, thank you all for watching today, and we'll sign off here. So Nicholas and Tom and myself here from BC Strategies, and we will be back with more episodes soon. And just stay tuned to BC Strategies because there are lots of more events coming up over the next few weeks, and we'll be back with some of those as well. So thanks everyone for watching.